Well, it's a great joy to have Larry from Water Mission joining us today with our church. Larry, welcome.
Thank you, Pastor Skyler. Good to join you guys and excited to connect with you guys and talk more about this mission.
Yeah. Larry, so we have you on. Our church is doing a giveaway offering. Stephanie Anderson has brought you, Stephanie, I should say, and Christy have brought your organization forward as kind of a next giveaway offering proposal for us. And I would love just to maybe learn a little bit more about Larry and this organization called Water Mission. And so maybe you could chat with us, and then we'll kind of shift over into the proposal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Skyler. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how I came about Water Mission, joining on the mission full time. I've served in ministry now for 22 years full time, and as a pastor, lead pastor, executive pastor, in some roles, innovation pastor, which we could talk about that later. That's fun stuff. But served in all over the country, really, West Coast, Chicago, latest in Alaska, Kodiak, Alaska, remote Alaska, and during the pandemic. And it's actually pretty relevant to Water Mission because I would say the pandemic helped open my eyes to meeting people's physical needs while we were sharing the gospel, right? As well as evangelism and then discipleship also. So love both, love the local church, and was pastoring a church in Kodiak, Alaska. The city had shut down and reached out to the church and asked, would we be available to take phone calls, deliver groceries, and just be available for people during this time, right? And oh my goodness, 3,000 people later, and I was just praising God for the opportunity just to love and be available. And how that relates to Water Mission, I've been connected to this organization and colleagues and leaders here for more than 10 years now, and have been talking, what would it look like for a pastor, someone who loves the local church, right, loves church planting and discipleship? What would it look like for someone like me to serve with the mission? And it was those moments during the pandemic, honestly, that showed me, like, okay, Larry, this is how the church reaches the rest of the world, are part of the way, right? And so I said yes. Oh my goodness, probably 6 months ago. I may be the newest hire on our team, so give me grace for my newness, but and if I can't answer questions, I'll get back to you guys with the correct information, is what I say. And so love this mission, and I'll actually be in Honduras in 2 weeks to see the work firsthand. We're taking 3 churches there with us to see the work firsthand. 3 communities that have received safe water and living water, and you'll see the scale of these projects is very different probably than what you've maybe know in the past from water well projects. It's a completely different system, and we'll talk about why here in a moment. And then one community that doesn't have safe water yet and has not been we've not worked with yet. So yeah, I'd love to share with you guys some photos and some hands-on information about who Water Mission is and why we do what we do.
Wow, that's awesome. So you, prior to this, 6 months ago, you were in Kodiak, Alaska.
So I skipped one step. 2 years ago, I transitioned from Kodiak to Central Arkansas, and funny enough, similar ministry. It was a church turnaround project here.
Yeah.
And it was actually the pandemic that caused it to get into a situation where, I mean, we talk about that later, that just needed a lot of restructuring and new elder team, like the whole thing. debt resolution, just a debt plan. And funny enough, I have an executive pastor background, so
Mm.
I didn't know it was going to be that much work. The Lord knew, and He used so that's how we came about from Alaska,
Okay.
working with Native Alaskans, the Coast Guard, and ministries there, to Central Arkansas. Plus, because my wife said 3 winters in Alaska, she was ready to get back down south. So
That's funny. That's funny.
so
We
yeah.
have we have some pretty deep roots with our church in Alaska and missions, church planning. Well, I want to say maybe Cornerstone would just kind of laugh at this. I want to say it's like it feels like half the church came from Alaska and is now
Wow.
here in Oregon. That's an exaggeration. However,
Yeah,
we have some deep roots. So, anyways,
I believe it.
um,
It's a wonderful place to invest. So
yeah. Yeah, so let's jump in. Let's talk about water mission, the history, vision, mission, what makes them different, everything, wherever you want to go with that. Talk to us about
yeah,
your mission.
that's good. I actually have a couple of photos that I'd like to share, and that way you guys can see. So let me. I don't. Well, I may have to just send it to you, and you can share with everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
let me see if I can get you some
okay.
permissions here.
And I'll share while you're talking, or while you're looking at that. So Water Mission started, we're a Christian engineering firm, just first and foremost, which is very different from a lot of nonprofit and agencies, even water agencies around the US.
Mm,
And originally the Green family, George and Molly Green, out of Charlotte, out of Charleston, South Carolina, they owned an engineering firm, a water engineering firm that served mostly in that part of the country. Well, their daughter was heavily involved in missions, and specifically in Honduras, back in 96, 97, 98. And in 1998, there was a disaster event, which we still serve in disasters all over the world. We'll talk about that in a second, where Hurricane Mitch just devastated Honduras.
mm,
And through the connections through the Green's daughter, the country, I mean, several areas in the country reached out and said, could you help us with water? Like, we've lost all access to water and sanitation systems, but water was the primary need, safe water specifically. They were drinking water out of the local rivers and just getting sick immediately,
wow.
as we now know today, that a lot of places around the world are doing this. So first, this engineering firm ran by Christians decided, yes, we can do something, and they built a water treatment filtration system. Proved the model, pretty simple stuff, right? Chlorination, sometimes coal, sometimes sand, like there's
Mm,
several steps. And the first time and the last time we were able to do this, the Air Force actually, I think I can share my screen now.
I think
The
so.
Air Force, let's see if I can get the right one. And just go to screen two. Yeah, the Air Force um, shipped these systems all to Honduras for us. And that was the first and last time, as obviously our government is not in the business of partnering with local Christian organizations for the benefit of the world, but God made a way. And that essentially in 1998 was the start of Water Mission, and or start of the eye-opening need of the needs of safe water around the world.
Mm,
This is the very first sip of water that George and Molly took. They got the water systems on the ground. There, it was pulling water from this river, which actually was called the River of Death in that
wow.
village. Yeah, and so they knew you don't drink water from that river because you die, like you get sick and you die. And they get the safe water system up and running, and no one in the community wanted to drink it. Like, no, they're like, we're not touching that water. We know where you got it from. And so George and Molly had to drink it first themselves. Um, so that's essentially in 1998 led to a relationship with those communities in Honduras. And then 2001, Water Mission was founded. And this was our early, crew of engineers, ministry leaders, missionaries, like all of the above, like you can imagine, making this happen. So we'll talk a little bit how we work, and I'll show you guys some systems, like a community system, and then we'll also talk about refugee camps. We provide water for massive refugee camps around the world. The reason why you don't hear about it is because usually in the Western civilization, the news doesn't know what to do with refugee camps. Like they don't know how to talk about it in a way where people want to get involved. So first and foremost, we provide safe water. We also provide the living water of Jesus Christ. So we bring both safe water and living water. I've actually got a presentation just to talk about that. So we'll come back to that in a second. Sanitation, as you guys imagine, knowing about safe water, just drinking water, you have to understand what makes it unhealthy. And a part of our training is teaching communities and working with churches and teaching communities and households and families, hey, this is what makes water safe, and this is how to keep it sanitary. So there's a whole training process around that, and the same with hygiene. Let me show you a couple of our solutions, and then I'll start digging into Tanzania specifically.
Awesome.
So a lot of times you'll hear, and there are water organizations around the world. I'm very close friends with a couple that have been investing for 20 years in providing well solutions, hand pump well. The problem with well solutions is within 12 to 18 months they normally will break. And it's just and it's not that hand pump wells are bad. It's just that it's the first step to trying to bring sustainable water to communities around the world. And so we don't want to say it's either or, but we'd say, hey, if there's a preference and we know we can hand the keys over to a water treatment system or a solution for the next 20 years and actually further, we'd prefer the second, right? Yeah. And so it's hard to compare water missions with other organizations because it's truly not apples per apple. What you see right here is our living water treatment system. You can see inside of this solar panel electric building that the solar energy runs the pump. It's self-sustaining already. We don't need electricity piped in. We can serve, which means we can serve rural anywhere we need to in the world. The hardest place is to bring water. What you see inside the building is one of the water mission employees in country. So they're hired in country. We work with local churches and communities only. And he is maintaining a system, the filtration system, and very, very much like the one that 6 of those that we put on the ground in Honduras during that first hurricane. It's a very portable system that can be set up in disasters, in country, all over the world, wherever you need safe water. And behind it, you could see the borehole well and the storage tank, a typical storage tank. We just talked about the difference between, hand pump and like a safe water solution. Part of that solution is in most of the cases is an erosion chlorinator. This is nothing new to us in the United States. Like, we know if we've got a well in our backyard, or if there's a wastewater treatment plant facility in our town, we know there's going to be a filtration system attached to it. And this essentially is what the system might look like in a remote area. What's amazing about this system is there's several corporate organizations that have provided the expertise and donated this in-kind service and equipment. So much of the engineering and pumps and connection devices you see have been provided by companies right here in the United States that just want to be a part of this solution. So, yeah. And we know that we can source the materials in country. Whatever materials we use on our systems in country, one of the requirements is they have to have those materials there locally or at the major city.
Okay.
And feel free to ask questions. I'm gonna go through this. There's kind of a lot of information, but if something pops up you want to talk about it, please ask. This is a typical water source, and whether it's spring or river or drilled well, number one, you have to have that water source. Many times you have to drill pretty deep into the ground to get to the fresh water, right? There are times where the only water source you're going to get is that river of death. And we've got to be able to say, we would drink this water, and this water is going to be as good as if it were where you guys live, right? In Gresham, Oregon. We make that commitment to our communities when we go serve them. Number two, we test and treat the water to make it safe. This one question will differentiate a lot of the water organizations out there, even some that I'm close to and work with. We test and treat the water. And like when we go to Honduras, a lot of us will have a water test kit with us. It's just a part of our culture and what we do. We always test the water. And we train the local communities how to do this and manage it as well. Right now, you're looking at our country manager in Peru. She is in charge of the employees. She's in charge of the system maintenance. She's got a staff, I believe, of 15. So it's a pretty big in-country office, and they're water mission employees. And it's a part of our goal is not only to provide safe and living water, to bring them safe water, a sustainable system, to disciple them in God's word, biblical training, and I'll get to talk to you about that in a second, but also that they would be able to take the keys and run it and manage it from here on out. Yeah.
No, I love that. I love the you guys, I mean, in a sense, are pull back a bit and let those from that area take over. I think that's fantastic. One quick question, as far as maybe you get to this, as far as like kind of the continual management piece of it, I guess I don't know the right way to ask this. How long do these last before some of the main components have to be replaced with the filtration and all of that? Are you going to talk about that later?
Well, no, we can talk about it now. It's one of the points of excellence from our organization. We want to make sure like these systems that we've installed will last for a minimum of 20 years. And it sounds pretty amazing, but it's because they're installed for long-term sustainability. And like the one shot in Peru, let me go back there. What's phenomenal about this is in some of the more developed areas like Honduras, Peru, even in Tanzania, and it's going to sound strange for a moment because you think in this emission, but there's a chargeback system in a water usage monitoring system that actually feeds real-time reporting back to our offices. Like it's real time. So it's pretty highly technologically advanced. What's amazing is, say in Tanzania and Africa, a typical household can afford to pay 3 cents per month for water, right? And that's your average, I would say, in poverty household. But because we do surveys and we try to figure out, okay, what's the minimum, like, or what's that level that you can actually have charged back to give people access to water that will maintain the system right? During the 20 years and beyond, like just changing out the chlorinator, filtration, those sorts of things. And there might be 10% of that community that can afford 15 cents per month, right? But we normally will level it all the way back down to that to make sure everyone can have access. We will set the price at 3 cents per month. And just to be clear, that money doesn't go back to Water Mission US. It actually goes into a bank account that's managed by the office and country. So this would be, gosh, I'm dropping her name, but this would be her responsibility. She can use that to order new parts for the wells, to pay for staff, whether that be safe water, living water. So here's how we like to say it, and it's kind of mind blowing when you hear it this way. It takes about $50 per person to bring safe water and living water, and then we'll say this for life, for their lifetime. And that's because the systems that are being put in are truly meant to be handoff and sustainable. And there's some places where we have to leave in a managed utility formula, and Honduras is one of them. We'll talk about that, why that's the case in a moment. It's actually because of good reasons, where we have to have some oversight, but that's just in the to make sure it stays in the right hands politically, and just all of those things that go with a successful community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
awesome. No, that fantastic answer. I'm glad I asked that and you shared that. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
yeah. Well, I'll get through some of these. We'll look at a couple of systems, and then we'll actually look at some living water discipleship items. And I don't know how much time we have. It's 1:25. This is a typical distribution safe water site. And this would say, sometimes you'll see one of these wellheads for about a community of 500 to 1,500. And many times, if there's more people, you'll see multiple access points in that community. What's amazing is the reporting system will tell us how much water usage is as each access site. It'll actually predict if there's any further drilling needed for the wells themselves, for the boreholes, based on usage. And it'll, back to your question, it'll predict, is there more project investment needed because of community growth in that area. So it's actually very helpful. Solar, many of our systems are powered by solar, and that's so they can be self-sustaining. And essentially, we don't just build for that year one demand. We will build for the next 5 or 10 years of potential demand in that area. What we've learned is, and you can imagine this, it's just like in the United States, when a community is thriving and there's lots, it helps the economy, it helps the church, everyone benefits from it. You get a lot more people moving there, and it starts to thrive. And so we build that into the system. Let me talk a little bit about sanitation, and then I'll jump over to some water systems. Sanitation, we have a healthy latrine program. A lot of what comes with safe water is also teaching and training with, okay, this is how to keep it safe. This is how to stay, washing our hands, using the restroom in a separate place that doesn't contaminate your water. And many countries, believe it or not, and communities still don't understand, or don't understand that that's why their kids are getting sick, because they're using the restroom near water sources. So we worked with actually Kohler toilets here in the US, and Kohler, from what I understand, in-kind donates all the toilets and systems when we build latrine systems. And so we also build healthy latrines throughout the communities, and teach in a healthy healthy sanitation training as well. So we don't need to go to the details of that, but there's a couple. And I'm gonna switch screens and share a couple of our larger treatment centers and where we're working in Tanzania, if that's okay.
You bet.
Okay. So stop sharing this. All right. This is in a Word doc that I'll send to you guys. And this one actually was just shared recently by one of our engineers. So it's going to look very engineering for a second. So okay. So in Tanzania specifically, our main offices are near the coast where we can get to easily. Dar el Salim. We have water projects throughout the country, really, and we'll look at that. It's actually shown down below. These blue dots are where our water projects are. But our main areas we have invested is Dodoma, as well as we have an office out in Kasulu. And I'll actually show you some photos from those areas. So to answer a little bit of where we work and why we work in certain places, along with talking about Tanzania, we're currently working in 9 countries around the world, and there's 2 things we have to have. We do have to have permission from that country to be able to work there. So that way there's no stoppage of work, short-term or long-term, because of political or government reasons. And that's a major factor in how we can work in places. And sometimes that work is limited to just safe water. And we have to agree to that. So we will heavily partner with the local church in both cases for this reason. So we'll talk about why in a second. And then some countries we could do safe water and living water, like 100% full bore. But the solution for us is work with the local church. Either way, we've got to empower, raise up, develop, and bring ownership from the local or invite ownership of the local church into all of our safe water projects. And that leads in them. But so currently in Tanzania is one of our 9 countries, and it's next door to Malawi and Kenya, which are our other countries. And the reason for that is it saves in logistics, shipping, they're all right there neighboring. So it saves a lot of that investment to be focused. And I'll say just in the past 5 years, we've had this switched, or we made this strategic decision to switch to a focused strategy to say we want to cover all of Tanzania with safe and living water. Oh. Before we, in these 9 countries, before we shift to those next neighboring countries, most likely. And so where our partnerships through the Global Water Center, through the local church, through the national church, as well as some non-government and government organizations, we've all agreed, like, we're going to partner and do this together. You can see by the numbers, water projects wise, 250 water projects near our main offices. Wow. 100. Yeah, it's so to date, I believe we're pushing 1 million people served just in Tanzania. And some of our largest is out here in Kigoma.
Those are all projects, like 229,218 projects.
That's right. That's right. And I'll get into some more detailed breakdown of yes. And I'll get into more breakdown here in a second. This is where I hope to not get in trouble. And I'll double check with my team and say, please, like, hold me accountable to this. But it is phenomenal. Well, I'm actually going to pull up the annual report and I'll send this to you guys. As of today, There's more than 8 million people served with safe water and living water in 59 countries.
Hmm.
And just this year, we brought on 1.3 million more people.
Wow.
And so it really is like, the more I learned about water mission as a pastor and is someone who wants to invest both locally and globally, like, right, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth, I thought, okay, like the door is open here for the gospel conversation and discipleship through the local church.
Right.
And the impact is incredible. You guys, you know where Tanzania is. We're going to look at the Dodoma region. I think we mentioned Dodoma in what we'd sent you guys. We'll talk about projects here in Dodoma. And let me see if I can pull one. Here's one that's currently happening. I'll send this to you so you can have it. I'm sure it's a little bit hard to see on the screen. Our Chicola system layout. You can see a supply line, storage tanks, and then multiple access points. So this is a school is one, two is another community, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8 access points. 8 of those, those faucets that you saw that are connected to, I think, 1 major or 2 boreholes and 1 storage tank. And this serves, I think this one serves 5,500 people. And so here's a couple of close-ups on the ground. So this is really what's different about water mission compared to just a hand pump wellhead, right? And so it essentially is, just keep in mind again that one hand pump that you usually see in a village may make it 12 to 18 months before it has to be repaired, or the well went dry because it wasn't drilled that shallow. This system is built to last for 20 years minimum. And this is the treatment centers inside this building, those treatment systems that we saw before, storage tanks, and then the solar power plant is providing all the energy. And what we don't really think about a lot, well, I guess we do now, but is security fencing. And typically the minimal fee that's provided will provide a security person as well to take care of it at night. That is what we consider a community water system. And these systems can range to serve up to 1,500 people, all the way up to, like, we've just completed one that's serving 30,000 people. And essentially they needed their own water utility district. And so our projects are custom to the need in the area, the community, and of course, as you know, funding from grants, partners, organizations, etc. And we'll break those projects into different components and pieces, depending on the size of the community, really, and what's needed. Here's a few prayer items that we would typically share with some of our partners that like I know that we're excited to work with Cornerstone, with you guys, and through our living water teams on the ground. So we have both engineering teams and discipleship living water teams. We would share prayer requests specific to that area or specific to that country. This is one of my favorite parts, because we get to know, okay, what do we want to see the Lord do there, right? So that was, before I go on to our refugee camp, is there any questions or anything that popped in your mind for the community water project system?
The one question I had is this is just really incredible and slightly overwhelming, just to see your guys' work. With the proposal, there is one for 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. I guess with both the pumps that are coming from the main source, where does that all fit on kind of the map? Is like the main hub of getting the filtration system, does that cost around 10,000? And then the pumping that to the villages, is that where all the other expenses kind of come in with the giving? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So let me answer that in a way. So we're looking at two proposed projects right now in Tanzania. Um, this one is Kitihana community, and it's a lot. It's one of our communities. It's about, I think, about 5,500 people as well, as compared to like this community. The Makir community is more like 30 to 40,000 people.
Okay.
And the best way I can describe like a typical standalone project, and this is the part where I don't want it to be so normally what we have to do is combine 2 or 3 or 4 organization funding for one project, because back in the day, I think you could build a hand pump water well, or you still can today. You can install a hand pump water well for anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000, right? In my colleague's organization, and okay, that buys one water well that brings a hand pump water for 500 people, whatever it might be. Because our systems are so large, typically one full system is pushing between $75,000 and $120,000 just to be,
Wow.
yeah, just to be. And so the way we work with partners, churches, organizations, grants specifically is, yeah, we'll take this community, for instance. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we qualified for a USAID grant, for 1.5 million. That'll fund, 5-10 projects. But because that grant is so specific on what it'll provide, it actually leaves these pretty significant gaps in communities. Meaning, it covered the well and the storage tanks and the solar, but it only wants to put like one access point, right? And so essentially we can break the finances out really however we need to, but then we start to say, okay, if we're going to meet the needs of this entire community, we need to figure out how to fund these access points or additional scope of storage tanks or what have you. And so and I'll just say it. Let me just share one story. Many people are familiar with Charity Water, and I think I shared this story with Stephanie early on. We were in Tanzania, actually, in the same community in Dodoma, and Charity Water had a pretty significant grant to provide water systems for a community in Dodoma, serving about 3,500 people. The problem is Charity Water they're not the engineering firm that's going to put the system in on the ground. They also don't do sanitation or hygiene or latrine systems. So we were on the ground at the same time Charity Water was, because we're partners. Like, we work with water organizations all over the world. And they had a little bit of a problem come up. A local Christian school of 600 students in Dodoma, Tanzania, asked could they install new bathrooms that the government had the Ministry of Education had shut down their Christian school because of their sanitation system.
Wow.
And Charity Water had to say no. And because the funding wasn't there and their grant was not written for that, right? Wow. So we're standing there and we go, okay, we think we can take this back to our organizations, churches, and individuals. and say, guys, we're looking at $28,000 to install new sanitation and latrine system for this Christian school that's currently shut down. And the nearest school is 10 miles away at 11 kilometers. And because our organizations and partners have said, okay, we want to give to Tanzania, but we want that to be used either for where most needed, wherever the project need is, that's where we want it to be used. And sure enough, that's where it came from. So that gift and that range, you wouldn't believe, actually, it fits in every one of these projects. Like there's those sorts of examples, whether it be a new borehole, a storage tank, whatever it might be. And to me, those are God stories, because they're like, okay, grants, even though they're amazing and they're a blessing, and we get so much work, even especially for our refugee camps, we'll look at. But sometimes grants tie your hands to where some very specific surgical needs are, if that makes sense. So
It does, yeah. Wow, thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
so let me just show you briefly the Nyarugusu refugee camp in Tanzania. This is a major part of our work. So there was an uprising. I think a lot in the Sudanese had pushed out, I mean, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people all at one time. This is a picture of them coming across the river to one village, just seeking safety, no homes, like no ability to, like they just overwhelmed the Tanzanian system. And we, through a couple of grants and partnerships with, God, I wish I could name all the organizations, we were able to come in and provide treated water and filtration systems, and really a treatment facility. And I think the refugee camp has, there's 200,000 people there now. It's enormous. And you can see how large this camp is. Borehole, solar array, treatment centers, more boreholes, and then the camp settlement all throughout. Those are the white, I guess they're not FEMA, but tents. But this is what the facility looks like at this camp. And praise God, our work there was going on for several years, and in 2019 we were finally able to say 100% of that water was safe. And it takes an enormous amount of work and effort to make sure that everyone's covered. And so super happy about that. I'm gonna stop sharing this for a second. All right, so I'm gonna move over to living water, but it's a lot more than you realize, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I said is, and I love serving. Like my role here, all I do is serve the local church, by the way. And it was kind of the caveat, the one condition I had. I said, guys, it is super hard for me to take a step outside the local church, because I actually believe the local church is the hope of the world. And but I'm kind of with you. The longer I'm here, the more projects I see, the more I'm like, praise God that this work is happening. And I'm gonna share a little bit about the living water side of our work. Here's what's timely and interesting that we're talking about Tanzania. One of the goals for living water program is to have a focus on Tanzania this year. And that means a lot of trainings, a lot of working with local pastors and churches. And I'll show you kind of what we do. Our main discipleship training tool that we have it's called the Living Water Church and Community Mobilization Program. And it doesn't sound like anything you'd put on in your own church, because people wouldn't show up to it, right? But I try to get people to attend this one, right, without food. No, it's so our projects normally last two years. That's how long we're at one particular project. and it's 24 months. And you have the site planning, the survey to figure out where your water source is going to be, how many people do you want to serve. But the main thing that takes a lot of time is not the construction. It's if you've ever read the book When Helping Hurts,
Mm.
you realize that it's not our job as Americans to come in and save this community, right? Um, we are there to empower and lift up the people, and because we know it's what we believe it's the local church that's going to be able to do that, and do it most effectively, short term and long term. So our first goal is to figure out who the man of peace is in the village, like figure out who are those people of Jesus, of Christ, that are actually um, uh, involved in healthy churches and that have influence, and invite them in to say, hey, there's an opportunity to bring safe water to your community. Would you guys want to lead this? Would you guys want to be a part of this? And sometimes that's a 12-month process, as you can imagine. It's like, herding pastors and boards and leaders. That's a difficult job. And um, so the first thing that we do is we build we cast a vision and mission around this, but we build a community, um, a leadership council that essentially we start to disciple them through the process, through God's word, through even, I mean, it's going to sound like VBS to us, but we start from ground zero. We start with a Good Samaritan story, right? We teach them what it means to take time and invest and meet people's physical needs, right? Not just pass them on the road. And we go through all throughout scripture and train what it means to be someone to take initiative to do this. And I'm trying to see what we have here. Oh, this is our living water efforts. So 2001, it began organically, which is great. That's what Christ did. He came and walked among us. He discipled and then sent people out. That's essentially how Water Mission started this. And slowly but surely, we thought, okay, we've got to come up with some sort of formal training and discipleship to say, how do we know that people are really in? How do we know that they're really engaged? And so we created the church and community mobilization. Um, and this is going to sound crazy, but this is the feedback we're getting. Pastors and churches are saying, can we get more training?
Hmm.
Can we get more biblical theological training? Because they don't go to seminary like you and I would. They're grateful for the leadership training that comes with this. And in 2022, we hired a new living water director. His name's Joey Gartner. He's phenomenal. We'll connect you and him at some point, him with Cornerstone. He and I talk weekly, like, because I'm in country in the US. He's overseas much of the time. And we help connect the local church with his global living water efforts. So last year, they revamped and retrained everyone in Kenya, Uganda, and Mexico. This year, it's going to be Tanzania and Peru, I think, is what the goal is. Integral mission. I mean, we could talk about this more whenever you want. But it's proclaiming the gospel, making disciples, and then demonstrating the gospel. That's what we would say is a thriving church. So it's pretty basic, but if you're like me, I fell in love with discipleship for a reason, and church planting, right? And a part of my missions efforts, like I wouldn't be at Water Mission had I not seen discipleship in there. Yeah. And some sort of training to multiply as Christ commanded us to. We talked about this. I spoke to it verbally, but it's equip the local church leaders with sound biblical knowledge. This is the one thing they keep coming back and asking for more of. I don't want to dream too big on this one, but one of your questions was, how can the local U.S. church be more involved? There's a proposal on the table. Joey and I are already in 100% agreement. We're just trying to figure out the how. How do we, because we're not a missionary, we're not a missions trip organization, right? We'll do vision trips with leaders. Um, like everything we do is to raise up that local church.
Mm.
So I think there's actually capacity though for some of our church ministry leaders who are mature in character and actually modeling out what does it mean to follow Christ. I think there's room to help with this sound biblical training. And even I think right now we use a program in an organization called Excelsi. I'll send you more on that.
Yeah.
Even if it's being trained underneath Excelsi to go as an Excelsi ambassador trainer, that would actually be better for us because we want to focus on the project. Like anyway, we'll talk more about this. So
Yeah. So
future conversation.
yeah,
Mhm.
you're saying there's potential opportunity to have people trained to go over to train the pastors and the church leaders over there. That's kind of on the table.
This,
What do we do with that?
yes, I would say train the trainer and or train the, I would say it's not on the table yet. It's in very deep conversation. Because it's the one that requires the most let's make sure we do this right. And
Yeah.
Pat, Skyler, you can imagine from a theological standpoint alone, making sure we do that right.
Yeah.
So yep. And so let's keep talking about this. I want to connect you, me, and Joey on that one and see if we can't beta test something that we can present
Yeah.
to our team. Yeah.
Bet.
So you get it. Support local church to build up new disciples, promote biblical principles through existing community development activities. Here's our training modules, much like you'd have at your church. Where they're learning about what does it mean to follow Christ and be a part of serving at the church. The same sort of thing. We start with the basics. Hey, this is about reconciliation with God. That's why he sent Christ. He sent us to serve on mission. That's integral mission. We look at Christ's servant leadership model through the Gospels. It's pretty straightforward discipleship, but what's amazing is, and I'll try to find the engineering map that we actually have to send to countries for approval, like what are we training, what's our process and all of that. You'll see this CCMP in that engineering schematic, our 24-month schematic, because we're not going to install water wells without this. You know what I mean? So it's buried into our training process all the way through. And then the restore survey afterward basically helps us evaluate how effective was the program, what does their spiritual walk look like how really, what does it look like before and after these projects. And we can share that with you guys as well. So last year there was a high intensity focus on Mexico, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, and Indonesia. This year we're adding Tanzania, and oh my goodness, I knew I wanted to bring something up. Impact stats. Let me just tell you, and then I'll send you the report after. 6,000 people heard the gospel of Jesus Christ through these programs, and 2,300 accepted Christ that we know of, made a profession. 4,500 of them received Bibles for the first time. And so hundreds of communities received trauma healing and counseling. And think about refugee camps. A lot of times when people leave, it's because there's horrific acts happening. and just being displaced comes with this need for trauma healing. So much of our living water initiatives come through trauma healing as well. Oh, here's some of the stats. We'll just cover these, and then I'll leave some time for you to ask questions.
Yeah.
In Mexico alone, 142 church and community mobilization program training happened. And think 142, that's just in one of those, is just one community, usually that has 5 or 10 churches attached to it.
Wow.
So this is the reason why the pastors are coming back saying, hey, can we get more theological training? Can we get more leadership training? They're loving what's happening through this. 120 is engaged in 24 communities. Gospels in Mexico alone, gospel shared more than 40 times with 490 people. You'll see that Kenya and Malawi are the ones with the gospel sharing, Uganda as well, through the roof.
That's awesome.
And it's a little bit of the culture thing. And we could talk about cultures and how it influences the effect, you know what I mean? The condition of the soil is all dependent upon that culture in those communities. So we can talk about the parable of the soil in that one. Uganda, yeah, this is where we saw 450 people, 4,500 people. The gospel is shared to them, and about 400 or 357 profess Christ. A lot of trauma healings there, 66 churches, church community mobilization program. Sorry, I'm flying through these. Kenya, and then Malawi. I don't know that I have Malawi. Yeah, Malawi was the big one. So what happened in Malawi this year was a lot of the floods, and we're already in Malawi doing water projects, just regular community water projects. And what happened was the flood disaster back in May came through and displaced like thousands of people. Well, it's horrific, right? But setting up refugee camps, settlement communities, 6,000 people were open and wanted to hear about the gospel, basically they were in a point where they wanted to know why and wanted to know how to get through such a disaster. And that we know of 2,500 of those accepted Christ on the spot.
Wow.
And this is where 4,500 or 4,200 Bibles were distributed. So even though we're in a country, like we're focused on Malawi, we've got water projects all over that country. You never know when a disaster is going to hit, and open the door for the gospel. So I'll stop there. I've shared a ton. So let me stop there and then just decompress for a minute with you. And sorry about the information overload, but
yeah, there's so much. Entering into this conversation, I was not Larry. I would lie if I would say I was prepared for that. That was I didn't expect to learn that much about what you guys are doing, and you hear clean water system, and that can tend to be the focus. From what you have just shared, it's a really clear heartbeat for the church, and how this can come alongside to assist the ministries and what God is doing there. So that is just, I'm really blown away by that. I really, really appreciate the level of devotion that is clearly there with, your passion, your heart for that, for the whole team. So I don't know, I'm deeply encouraged.
Yeah. I'm grateful for that. And like, same for me, like serving as a pastor for 20 plus years. It wasn't easy to make that decision to say, okay, Lord, like, why this? Why now? And the more I get to see and the more I hear about it, I'm like, okay, like I get it. Like I get it.
Yeah.
And praise God that there's this type of work happening, in places that we may never get to go to. And so maybe I can answer the so what question, like, so what can we as the church do, or what can we be a part of? And it's like, and this isn't like, we ask for prayer. And my favorite thing about Joey and his how he's here with the living water focus is we now get to share details back from the field to the church. And it's such an easy and powerful way to go, oh my goodness, like the work that's happening in Tanzania, we can see the praises, but we can also see the roadblocks, right? We can pray for those. There's things that there's some resources that we've just recently begun sharing. We have VBS resources that make it kind of fun to teach our kids and that next generation about what the Lord's doing around the world. So there's so many things. There's so many ways the church can get involved, and it's not your typical short-term mission trip model. Like it really isn't. And I think that's because of the engineering side of our organization. Like we figured out a way to get solutions on the ground and empower and share the gospel where the local church gets to run with it.
Mm.
And it's not us coming in trying to save anybody, right? And so we can talk more about that. It's a philosophy change for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, Larry, I was kind of poking around, trying to figure out what questions people had, and just to ask you, you answered, I think, the majority of the questions that I have written down here. I guess one question is, what is that with the follow up and just kind of following the progress of the project? What would that look like for Cornerstone or for other churches?
Yeah. So typically what we provide is both the engineering side, the safe water side, and living water. We have two different teams kind of focused on those two efforts at the same time. We provide impact reports. And it honestly, so the formal impact reports we can produce, I'll work with our team to find out how often we produce those, but like I'll send out usually once a month a report out to our churches and partners and projects. And sometimes the reports are straight from the living water teams. It just depends on what you guys prefer and how you prefer to receive it. Meaning like here's literally what's happening on the ground right now from a discipleship standpoint. And project, as you can imagine, like if you've ever built a building for a church, those construction updates come when they come, and you celebrate when stuff happens, right? When the trench gets dug, you say, hey, we dug a trench. And so what I could do is zero in a couple of the projects and say, here's some of the projects we're watching in Tanzania, and here's where the financial need and the spiritual progress is happening, and celebrate some of those stories with you guys.
Awesome.
And sometimes, or not sometimes, we'll actually get transformation stories from on the ground with the family and communities as they're willing to share. So most of the time it's photography and written. We actually have a short film coming out this next January. It's focused on Honduras, but just things like that. We have so many resources to kind of share and say, we'd love for y'all to celebrate with us what God's doing. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Boy, let's see. I guess for our church is a very we like to do stuff and just
Yeah.
be active. And I know for a lot of people, and a lot, we like to do just kind of giveaway offerings to different organizations that our church has been connected with. And one of those things that we always love just to say, what can we do to help out? If that's you know, the construction of a bathroom. Is there anything that we can do to come in and provide some labor and help with the cost to do anything like that? So I know for a
Yeah.
lot of people at Cornerstone, there'd be some kind of questions as far as that is there, what would it look like for Cornerstone above this above this offering, this giving to Water Mission that we can do to pursue further involvement? What would that look
Yep.
like? You've kind of touched on maybe there's some future openings down the road. Some specific things just to throw at you, and see how you know what you think about this. But can somebody join from Cornerstone one of the projects out there and just boots to the ground, check things out, or maybe there's some skilled people that you would need in that area? What would that look like? How can we do something like that with the local church pastors? Is there a way that we can come alongside them in some capacity to love on them, to train them, to further help some of what you guys are doing out there with the church?
Yeah, that's great questions. And the church is phenomenal at right being the hands and feet of Christ, getting on the ground. That's what we're called to do. I would say the immediate openings we have right at this moment, and it's pretty exciting because it just happened. We have about 300, I'll even call them stipend roles, meaning it's not just a volunteer, but it's in stipend, it's not a ton, but it's enough to say, hey, I'm in the game. 300 roles for churches. We think the church is perfect to fill for our disaster response team.
Mm.
And you guys, especially in Oregon, you guys might actually have like a local disaster relief, training organization. We have found the need, and we found it very helpful to be able to train people for global disasters, and to be available and ready to go. Like, for instance, right now we're in Morocco, and we're helping out with the earthquake that happened in Morocco. So we're able to say, hey, here's a role, here's a specific need that we need to fill, and we have an army of people trained to be able to go and be the hands and feet of Christ globally at a moment's notice. Like, we're looking at Israel right now, even though that's a dangerous place to be. At some point, there may be a huge opening for us as the church, right, to be able to say, we're trained, we're ready, we can go be a part of safe water and living water in places like that.
Mm.
And as far as, like, say in Tanzania, so we, in our current model, we really don't do, like, say, short-term mission trips in our current model, but this is where the living water director and I are trying to be creative and say, how can we figure out a way where falling in a line with that when helping hurts, right, model. And we'll make sure, if you guys haven't read that, make sure that we all go through that together so we understand the why. That we can still build a way to go and support in those efforts there on the ground. And as long as we're all in agreement, the goal is truly to empower that local church, right? Empower what they're doing. So, but yes, a couple of other things that we found our churches love being a part of. There's VBS initiatives that essentially, this is where it's most powerful. When our local church, when, say, a handful of volunteers can sign up to be water advocates or safe and living water advocates, they would go through our training. Like, we teach that, basically what you and I just talked about. We go through everything that we do, why we do what we do, and it helps empower you guys to kind of talk in this with this in a way, and invite the community or more of the church into it. So and honestly, a lot of what our advocates do is a lot of prayer, a lot of praying for those things that we looked at, and being available to serve with other churches if need be.
Awesome. Great. Um, Larry, this has been very, very, very helpful and very encouraging. So I'm really, really thankful for Stephanie and Christy bringing you guys before us as a church, and just the opportunity to partner with you guys in what God is doing. So, man, I don't, at the moment you have exceeded the questions that I have, and a lot of the questions that I had jotted down in your presentation, you answered all of them. I had a feeling that you would, and you raised some questions, you brought some answers that I just wasn't even thinking about and considering, and it's a lot to process. And I'm so encouraged and grateful for you, Larry. So thank you for everything you do. Thanks for taking time to pop on to Zoom with our church, just to help us understand the ministry a little bit better there. So,
Oh, absolutely. Like I'll say, you guys are a blessing and encouragement already. And if it makes sense to highlight this on one of the weekends or Sunday at some point, we'd be happy to be there and help make that a positive experience. And I just want to say thank you guys for being available to do this work around the world in some of the most remote places. So the need is incredible, and the church is actually helping us reach more people for Christ. So thank you.
yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Larry.